Yesterday when I sat down to create in front of my computer, I didn't really feel like doing anything. It's kind of weird because I know that I wanted to, but I just didn't feel like it at the same time. I started kind of spiraling like, oh, I shouldn't even create anyways because it's gonna look average in the end. It's not gonna be anything crazy. Some stuff came up. My computer was overheating as well, so I just decided to not really do anything that day. So I just kind of let it go. But then since I was demotivated, I didn't really know what to record. But then I figured out that that's exactly what I should record about, because sometimes when you're demotivated, you don't really know how to get out of it. And that's what I wanted to do in this video. I wanted to talk about how you can get out of this creative rut and just start doing stuff even when you don't really feel like it. This is specifically for when you want to do something but you also don't feel like doing it. I know usually my videos are super edited and more fast-paced and stuff, but I feel like today I just want to go slow and talk to you guys about this. And I honestly feel like the best way to help you overcome demotivation is by actually showing you what I do when I'm demotivated. And what a better time if not now when I'm actually struggling with being demotivated. I'm gonna make everything green here maybe. I feel like one thing that helps me a lot is to set up a clear goal of what I want to accomplish, because you could probably tell I don't really know what I'm doing here. And while I think that's the best way to get creative, like it's kind of weird, but when you don't know what you're doing, these are usually when the most creative stuff happens, because you don't really know what you're doing. You're not really following any pattern. You're just doing whatever you want to do. And that's great. It's really fun to do that. But at the same time, when you're going through a demotivation phase, it's hard to kind of do things when you have no idea of what you're going to do, because when you open the editor, it can be very overwhelming. There's so much stuff you can do here, and while it's fantastic, that can also lead to just being overwhelmed and then you don't really know what to do. Especially when you're working on bigger projects, I feel like it's so easy to get overwhelmed by what you're doing. As an example, I can just use myself here. You might be aware that I'm doing quite a big project called Crystal Odyssey, and it is decently easy to get overwhelmed by it, especially because I kind of struggle with working on big projects. Usually I just work on smaller stuff, because for me it's easier to just have one idea and then work on that idea, because I have way too many ideas too fast. Because I have ADHD, it's hard to focus on just one idea, right? So it can be pretty hard to focus on a big level because you have one massive thing that you need to work on, kind of. So one thing that has helped me in a crazy way is just having a little note block, or using your sticky notes app on Windows, maybe something like that. It's so easy to use, and preferably I think using pen and paper is just better for some reason. I don't know, I just feel like it's easier for me to start working on something when I already know what I'm gonna do. When it's a big project, if it's just like a small one, then usually it doesn't really affect it that much. But I think for big projects, or even for smaller ones, if you're struggling with motivation, I think it's super important to just have an idea of what you're going to do. But then again, this is for cases where you don't have motivation, because again, I feel like the most interesting stuff happens when you are just randomly doing stuff in the editor and then you just end up doing something super sick. It's just, I guess it makes sense that when you're not very aware of what you're doing, you end up doing really cool stuff. And it doesn't have to be necessarily something super crazy creative. It just ends up being something kind of cool. Like for instance, I had no idea that I was gonna do this random green level today. I just did it because I didn't feel like doing anything, and then I just decided to just start something, even if it's just a little simple level with just a layout, nothing else. And so far it's a lot better than just a layout. And that's the second point I want to make in this video. The first one is to note things down and have an idea of what you're gonna do. So set up a clear goal. And the second point, I think, is to just do something. I've said this one many times to many different people, but I feel like it's so important to repeat it, because what happens sometimes is just when you're demotivated, you're just like, oh, I don't really feel like doing anything, and you just open the editor, you make whatever, like you don't really try to make anything, and then you just leave the editor again. And it's totally fine if that happens, but you should at least try to just do something, because sometimes it won't work. I'm gonna be honest, it doesn't work all the time, and I totally get that. But sometimes it may work, and if it does work, you may come up with something that is interesting, and you never know what you can come up with. And then when you do something, try not to worry about how it's looking or how it's going to look. Just build mindlessly, if that makes sense. Do stuff without thinking too much about it. Sometimes all you need is to just do something and just not worry too much about it. We already too often worry about others' opinions in our lives and also in creating. So sometimes it's just it's gonna stray away from that a little bit. What am I doing? Okay, I'm not gonna keep that. Well, you might end up having fun by just doing random stuff. Oh, that one is so cool. Oh, that is nice. I feel like that might be a little too fast. I'm gonna do fade in, so it's a little more subtle. Oh, that's really cool. So yeah, I think it's very important to keep it simple. I feel like we overcomplicate creating a lot sometimes. And sure, you can want to get array and you can want to make a cool level, but sometimes you should just make a layout and that's fine. I'm giving a very good example right here. I'm using one object for the block design and it doesn't really matter because who cares in the end? If someone says it's empty, that's kind of the point of the level. It doesn't really matter if it's detailed or not. And if it doesn't get rated, then it doesn't matter either because it's not made to be rated. And see, that's my point. When you build for fun, the other stuff is just consequences of your enjoyment. I'm building because I want to build and I think it's a fun thing to do, not because I want to get more creator points or because I want to get famous or to impress people. I'm just building because I want to build, even though it doesn't look insane. It's just my little level and I'm happy with it. Wait 1 second, let me change these particles up a little bit. But yeah, in the end, I feel like the reason why so many people get demotivated or they don't get into creating is because we overcomplicate creating a lot. We make creating about having the top one level that is super hard and everyone has to play it. It's either that or you want to get lots of downloads and stuff, rather than just crafting our own little experience for us to enjoy, and if that's the case, for other people to enjoy it as well. It's a video game, so you're meant to just have fun. And I talk about this in so many videos, but I still feel like it's something that isn't constantly need to be reminded of. But if you're a beginner creator, maybe you're looking at this and saying, but dude, this is a crazy good level. You just made this in like 5 minutes. I've actually been recorded for, I don't know, 30-40 minutes. So it's a lot of stuff that I cut out. And regardless of that, my point is you should have fun. You shouldn't compare your levels to other people's, because that's not the point of it. Like, sure, you can admire other creators and that's super cool, but don't let it get to the point where you just bring your own creations down or you don't want to create simply because this other person did this thing that looks better and they did it in less amount of time, because that really doesn't matter. Everyone has their own pacing when it comes to everything, and that includes creating, of course. It works like that for anything in your life. Why would it not work like that for creating as well? Try something out and don't worry too much about what other people are gonna think. You don't have to do your absolute best. You just gotta make something, and that's the goal here. You're just trying to get back into the flow of creating. And again, this doesn't always work. It's not a life-changing hack for motivation and stuff. It doesn't work every time because we have brains and our brains are interesting. They work in many different ways. So sometimes it's going to work, sometimes it's not going to work. And of course, I'm using the word motivation here as just when you don't feel like doing something, because really motivation is what drives you to do something. So for instance, if you want to get creator points, then creator points is your motivation to create. And if you're trying to have fun, then having fun is your motivation to create. And if having fun is your motivation to create, you might just make amazing stuff by simply not trying. And I know it sounds kind of crazy, but it really can happen. You can be a little lazy sometimes. Like here, I don't really want to make new gameplay, so I'm just gonna copy and paste the gameplay that I already have done, and that is totally fine. There's always gonna be people complaining about one thing or another, but again, what matters is you're having fun. Another cool thing that you can do when you're feeling demotivated is giving yourself a little challenge. Maybe let's say, oh, I have to make a full level in 1 hour, or I have to make a full level in 30 minutes, because that forces you to go simple. And that's the goal here. We're trying to go simple because that's the easiest way to have fun again. You have to kind of force yourself a little bit to just not put too much effort, if that makes sense. Because if you're not having fun with doing something so small, you're not going to have fun doing something super big that takes a bunch of effort. So we're trying to exactly do the opposite of that. We're trying to start with something simple, and that's what we did for this video. I started with just a few blocks and I ended up changing it to green and black, and then it just turned into this thing. And even though it took me like 40 minutes to figure it out, after I figured it out, I'm having a lot of fun making it, which is kind of crazy considering I didn't want to create anything at all 40 minutes ago, and I'm just here right now doing exactly that. So it is pretty crazy how just doing something can do wonders when it comes to motivation. So to kind of go back here, my first point was to just set up a clear goal and just have something in mind. Then the second goal is to just get to do something in the editor. The third point was to make a challenge. Maybe give yourself 30 minutes to make a level, or maybe 15 minutes to make a block design. And try to make something that actually challenges you to make something simple, because that's probably the best way to get back into creating. It's just starting simple. But then if that also doesn't really work out, then I feel like the best option is to copy something. And I know that sounds kind of crazy. Like, what do you mean you're a GD moderator and you're encouraging people to copy? No, I'm not. What I'm saying is sometimes when you can't really come up with something that you want to do, you can always open another level in the editor just to see how it was done. That usually gives me a lot of ideas when I'm trying to look for something to do. And it's just also fun to learn how other creators do their own stuff. It's almost like a class. You end up learning more about other people's creative process, which I think is something really cool to learn. Also, I feel like I could totally just put some purple in this instead of green. I don't know, I just had that random thought. That looks really cool. What if I get the saw blades and change them to purple? Ooh, that just added a lot of spark to it. I'm actually kind of curious on how this looks. Oh, dude, I'm actually really glad I just kept going with this. Also, massive thank you for 10,000 subscribers. That is absolutely unreal, and realistically I never thought that this would actually be a thing that I would see. And maybe what's causing you to be demotivated is also how you think about creating and what it is for you, alongside other things. If you want to know what those mistakes are and how to fix them, you can watch this video right here. Lots of people told me that video was helpful, so maybe it's going to be helpful for you as well. Also, it's important to know when to take a break.
Feel.